Dramily.com, unlimited drama series.
The phone rang at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, jolting me awake from the kind of deep sleep that only comes after 14 hours on a construction site. My wife Sarah wasn't in bed beside me, but that wasn't unusual anymore. She'd been pulling late nights at her marketing firm for months, or so she claimed. Eli Barnes? The voice was professional, clipped. Yeah, who's this? This is Margaret Chen from Pinnacle Marketing. I'm calling about Sarah's absence from today's client presentation. Is she feeling better? My blood went cold. Sarah had left that morning in her best business suit, telling me she had back-to-back meetings all day. I sat up, suddenly wide awake. She's not there? Mr. Barnes, Sarah called in sick this morning. We've been trying to reach her all day about the Morrison account. Her phone goes straight to voicemail. I thanked Margaret and hung up, my hands shaking with something that felt like rage mixed with nausea. Sarah had lied to me, but where the hell was she? I grabbed my phone and opened Instagram, something I rarely did. Sarah was always posting pictures of her perfect life, her perfect job, her perfect husband who worked with his hands while she worked with her mind. The contrast made for good content, she said. Her latest post was from 3 hours ago. A sunset photo taken at Ocean View Resort, 2 hours north of our small coastal town of Millbrook. The caption read, "Sometimes you need to extend your stay when life gets this beautiful. #blessed, #work hard, #play hard." Extend her stay? She was supposed to be home tonight. I scrolled through the comments, my stomach churning. Her friends from work were liking and commenting, but what caught my eye was a comment from someone named Derek_Coastal. Glad the first could show you the best spots. See you tomorrow, beautiful. I'd never heard Sarah mention anyone named Derek. I spent the next hour going through Sarah's social media, like a detective, something I'd never done in our 5 years of marriage. The trust between us had always been solid, or so I thought. What I found made my world tilt sideways. Pictures from the past month showed Sarah at restaurants I'd never been to, at events she'd never mentioned, always perfectly dressed, always smiling. And in several photos, partially cropped out but still visible, was the same man, tall, blonde, wearing expensive clothes that screamed trust fund baby. Tall. By 2 a.m., I was sitting in my kitchen with a cup of coffee and a growing pile of evidence that my wife was living a double life. The worst part wasn't just the lying, it was how stupid she thought I was. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Working late again. Don't wait up. Love you. I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Saw your Instagram. Ocean View Resort looks nice. How's Derek? The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before her response came. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm at the office. That's when I knew for certain. Sarah wasn't just lying about where she was. She was lying about everything. I walked to our bedroom and opened her dresser drawer. Hidden beneath her workout clothes was a second phone, one I'd never seen before. My hands trembled as I powered it on. The messages I found there would have made a sailor blush. Months of explicit texts between Sarah and Derek Morrison. Yes, Morrison, as in the client she was supposedly working late to impress. But Derek wasn't just any client. According to his messages, he was the son of the company's biggest account, a spoiled rich kid who collected married women like trophies. The messages revealed everything. How they'd met at a company party 6 months ago. How Sarah had been feeding him inside information about other accounts to keep him interested. How they'd been meeting at expensive hotels and restaurants while I worked 60-hour weeks to pay for the house she claimed to love. But the worst message was from just 2 days ago. Can't wait to tell Eli about us. His face is going to be priceless. Poor blue-collar boy never saw it coming. They were planning to humiliate me. This wasn't just an affair, it was a game to them. I sat there until dawn, reading every message, screenshotting everything. By the time Sarah's real phone started ringing at 7 a.m., I had a plan. Eli, her voice was cautious when she answered. Why are you calling so early? Just wanted to hear your voice before you head into another long day at the office, I said, keeping my tone light. Margaret Chen called last night. She said you were sick yesterday. Silence stretched between us like a chasm. Oh, that. Yes, I felt better by evening, so I went for a drive to clear my head. Must have forgotten to update my location on Instagram. Must have. Well, don't work too hard today. I love you. Love you too, she said. But the words sounded hollow. After she hung up, I called my foreman and told him I needed a few personal days. Then I drove to my best friend Mike's house. Mike Sullivan had been my buddy since high school. He was a detective with the Millbrook Police Department now. And more importantly, he was the kind of friend who'd help you move a body without asking questions. I wasn't planning on moving any bodies, but I needed someone I could trust completely. "You look like hell," Mike said when he opened his door at 8 a.m. "Feel worse. Can we talk?" Over coffee in his kitchen, I laid out everything I'd discovered. Mike listened without interruption, his cop face getting more serious with each detail I revealed. "Jesus, Eli. I'm sorry, man. What do you want to do?" "I want them to pay, both of them, but I want to do it right, legally. Can you help me?" Mike leaned back in his chair thinking. "Derek Morrison. I know that name. His father owns half the commercial real estate in the county. Kid's been in trouble before. DUI, harassment charges that got dropped, couple of domestic disturbances. Rich Daddy always makes the problems go away." "What about Sarah? What she's doing isn't illegal, just shitty. But if she's sharing confidential client information with Derek, that could be corporate espionage. And if Derek's using that information, that's fraud, right?" "Could be. Depends on what they're doing with it." Mike stood up and grabbed his jacket. "Let me make some calls. In the meantime, don't confront them yet. Keep documenting everything. And Eli? Yeah? Don't do anything stupid. I know you're hurting, but prison orange isn't your color." I spent the next 3 days living a double life of my own. During the day, I went to work and acted normal. At night, I became a private investigator, digging deeper into Sarah and Derek's relationship. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. Using Sarah's second phone, I traced their activities over the past 6 months. They hadn't just been having an affair. They'd been systematically defrauding Sarah's company and its clients. Derek would get inside information from Sarah about upcoming bids and proposals. Then his father's company would mysteriously submit winning bids that undercut the competition by just enough to secure contracts worth millions. Sarah would get bonuses for maintaining client relationships, and Derek would shower her with expensive gifts bought with his ill-gotten gains. But the most damaging discovery came when I found their shared cloud account. They'd been taking photos and videos of their encounters, but not just for personal use. Derek had been sharing them with his rich friends, treating Sarah like entertainment. The messages I found showed him bragging about corrupting the construction worker's wife and making bets with his buddies about how long it would take to completely destroy her marriage. Sarah had no idea she was being used as badly as she was using me. On Thursday evening, Sarah came home with shopping bags full of designer clothes I knew we couldn't afford. "Good day at work?" I asked, watching her model a dress that probably cost more than I made in a week. "The Morrison account is really taking off, Mr. Morrison is so pleased with my work that he gave me a bonus." She spun around, the dress flowing around her legs. "Do you like it?" "It's beautiful. You're beautiful." The words tasted like ash in my mouth, but I needed to keep playing the role a little longer. That night, while Sarah slept beside me, I received a text on her hidden phone from Derek. "Tomorrow night at the Grandview Hotel, Presidential Suite. Wear the red dress I bought you. Time to celebrate our success." I screenshot the message and sent it to Mike, along with everything else I'd gathered. His response came back within minutes. "Holy shit, this is bigger than we thought. Meet me tomorrow at noon." The next morning, Sarah kissed me goodbye and told me she'd be working late again. I watched her drive away in her BMW, another bonus from her dedicated work with the Morrison account, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. At noon, I met Mike at a diner outside town. "I showed everything to the district attorney," he said without preamble. "They're very interested. The Morrison Group is already under investigation for bid rigging. Your wife's information could be the key to bringing them down." What does that mean for Sarah? If she cooperates? She might get immunity. If she doesn't, Mike shrugged. She's looking at conspiracy charges, fraud, maybe racketeering if they can prove she knew about the bigger picture. And Derek? Mike smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Derek Morrison is about to have a very bad day. The FBI has been building a case against his father's company for 2 years. Sarah's information just gave them everything they need. I felt a surge of satisfaction, but it wasn't enough. When do they move? Tonight. They're going to arrest Derek at the hotel. Sarah will be brought in for questioning tomorrow morning. I want to be there. Eli, not at the arrest, but I want to be there when Sarah realizes her world is falling apart. She planned to humiliate me. Turnabout is fair play. Mike studied my face for a long moment. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time for some truth. But first, I need to make a few calls. That afternoon, I reached out to everyone who mattered in Sarah's carefully constructed social media world. Her friends from work, her college sorority sisters, her mother, her sister in California. I didn't tell them everything, just enough to plant seeds of doubt. I'm worried about Sarah, I told her best friend Jessica. She's been working such long hours, and I think the stress is getting to her. She's been saying some strange things about her clients, sharing confidential information. I'm concerned she might be in over her head. To her mother, I expressed concern about Sarah's spending. She's been buying expensive clothes and taking trips I know we can't afford. When I ask about it, she gets defensive. I'm worried she might be having some kind of breakdown. To her sister, I was more direct. I think Sarah might be having an affair. She's been lying about where she is, and I found some concerning messages on her phone. I don't know what to do. By 6 p.m., Sarah's phone was buzzing constantly with concerned calls and messages from friends and family. She ignored them all, too focused on getting ready for her big night with Derek. I watched her put on the red dress Derek had bought her. Watched her apply makeup with the care of someone preparing for the most important night of her life. In a way, she was right. It would be the most important night of her life, just not in the way she expected. You look incredible, I told her, and meant it. She did look incredible. She also looked like a woman about to lose everything. Thank you, baby. I'm sorry I have to work so late again, but this Morrison deal is almost closed. After tonight, everything is going to change for us. She was right about that too. After she left, I drove to the Grandview Hotel and parked across the street. Mike was waiting in an unmarked car with 2 FBI agents. We didn't have to wait long. At 8:47 p.m., Derek Morrison was arrested in the hotel lobby, wearing a tuxedo and carrying a bottle of champagne that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. Sarah, who had been waiting in the presidential suite, came down in her red dress to find out why her lover was 20 minutes late. The look on her face when she saw Derek in handcuffs was everything I'd hoped for and more. And Sarah didn't come home that night, or the next morning. I knew she was sitting in an FBI field office, learning just how badly she'd miscalculated everything. Mike called me at noon on Saturday. She's talking, he said. Gave them everything. Bank records, communications, details about the bid rigging scheme. She's trying to play the victim, claiming Derek manipulated her. Is it working? Hard to say. The feds are more interested in Derek and his father right now. Sarah might skate with minimal charges if she testifies. When is she coming home? Tonight? Probably. They're releasing her on her own recognizance, but she's not allowed to leave the state, and she can't contact Derek or anyone from the Morrison group. I spent Saturday preparing. I changed all the passwords on our shared accounts, transferred money from our joint savings into my personal account, and made copies of all our important documents. I also printed out every message, photo, and piece of evidence I'd gathered about Sarah's affair. When Sarah walked through our front door at 9 p.m., she looked like a different person. The confident, polished woman who'd left in designer clothes had been replaced by someone hollow-eyed and defeated. Eli, she said, her voice barely a whisper. We need to talk. Yes, we do. I gestured to the kitchen table, where I'd laid out everything. Have a seat. She sat down slowly, her eyes taking in the printed messages, the bank statements, the photos. Her face went through a series of expressions: surprise, fear, anger, and finally, resignation. How long have you known? She asked. Since Tuesday night, when your boss called looking for you. Margaret called you? Sarah's voice was small. She was worried. Seems you called in sick but forgot to tell Instagram. I picked up one of the printed photos, a selfie of Sarah and Derek at an expensive restaurant. Nice place. I've never been there. Funny, since we've been married 5 years and supposedly share everything. Sarah started to cry, but they felt like calculated tears, the kind she'd always used to get out of trouble. Eli, I can explain. No need. I read all your messages, both phones. I watched her face crumble as she realized how thoroughly exposed she was. I know about Derek, about the bid rigging, about the photos he shared with his friends. I know you were planning to leave me and thought it would be funny to see my reaction. That's not, I never. Poor blue-collar boy never saw it coming, I quoted from memory. That was your message to Derek 3 days ago. Were you planning to film my reaction too? Share it with his rich friends for their entertainment? Sarah's fake tears turned real. Eli, please. I made mistakes, but I love you. Derek was just what? Derek was just what? A way to feel superior to your husband? A ticket to a better life? Or were you just bored with the guy who works with his hands while you work with your mind? She flinched at my words. I was throwing her own social media captions back at her. I was confused, she said desperately. Derek made me feel special, important. He showed me a different
Second Instagram, 47 posts, all of her. You built her a shrine. You posted her on my birthday.
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
world. He showed you a world built on fraud and corruption, and you helped him steal millions of dollars from your own company and their clients. I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. Did you know he was sharing videos of you with his friends? Making bets about how long it would take to destroy our marriage? The color drained from Sarah's face. What? I pulled out my phone and showed her the messages I'd screenshot from Derek's cloud account. Her hands shook as she read them, seeing herself described in terms that would make a porn star blush. He called you his married slut and bragged about breaking in the construction worker's wife. There are videos, Sarah. Hours of them. His friends have seen everything. Sarah doubled over like I'd punched her in the stomach. Oh God, no. Derek never loved you. You were just another conquest, another way to prove he could take whatever he wanted. And you helped him steal millions while he humiliated you behind your back. Eli, please what? Please forgive you? Please pretend this never happened? I stood up, looking down at the woman I'd thought I knew. You didn't just cheat on me, Sarah. You committed federal crimes. You're going to prison. They said I might get immunity if I testify. Against Derek and his father, yes. But what happens after that? Do you think you'll keep your job after testifying that you've been selling client information for months? Do you think any marketing firm will hire you after this becomes public record? The reality of her situation was finally sinking in. Sarah had burned every bridge, destroyed every relationship, committed federal crimes, all for a man who saw her as nothing more than a temporary amusement. What do you want from me? She whispered. I want you to understand what you've lost. We had a good marriage, Sarah. I loved you completely, trusted you absolutely. I worked 60-hour weeks so you could have the life you wanted. And you threw it all away for a spoiled rich kid who was laughing at both of us. I walked to the front door and opened it. I want you to leave. Tonight. Find somewhere else to stay while you figure out your legal situation. I'll be filing for divorce on Monday. Eli, please don't do this. I'll make it right, I swear. I'll do whatever it takes. You can't make this right. You can't unsend those messages or uncommit those crimes. You can't take back the months of lies or the federal investigation you're now part of. I held the door open wider. You made your choice. Now live with it. Sarah gathered her purse and walked toward the door, then turned back one last time. I really did love you, she said. No, you didn't. If you'd loved me, you wouldn't have been able to do any of this. You loved the idea of me, the stable husband, the nice house, the social media content. But you never loved me enough to be faithful, honest, or loyal. After she left, I poured myself a drink and sat in my living room, surrounded by the evidence of my wife's betrayal. I should have felt victorious, but mostly I felt empty. My phone rang. It was Mike. How'd it go? She's gone. It's over. You okay? I thought about that for a moment. Yeah, I think I am. What's the latest on Derek? Denied bail. His father's been arrested too. The FBI found evidence of bid rigging going back 5 years, involving dozens of companies and hundreds of millions in contracts. Sarah's information was just the tip of the iceberg. And Sarah? She'll probably get probation and community service in exchange for her testimony. But her career is over, and the civil lawsuits are going to bankrupt her. After I hung up with Mike, I walked through my house. My house now, since Sarah's name wasn't on the deed. It felt different already, cleaner somehow. I thought about the past week, about how quickly a life could change when the truth came out. Sarah had gambled everything on a fantasy, and she'd lost it all. Derek had thought his money and connections made him untouchable, and he was about to learn otherwise. As for me, I'd lost a wife, but I'd gained something more valuable, the knowledge that I was stronger than I'd ever imagined. The next few weeks passed in a blur of legal proceedings, media attention, and social fallout. The Morrison Group scandal made national news, with Sarah's role as the inside source becoming a key part of the story. I watched from a distance as Sarah's carefully constructed life disintegrated completely. She lost her job, obviously. Her social media accounts, once filled with posts about her perfect life, went silent. Her friends from work stopped returning her calls. Even her family began distancing themselves as the full scope of her crimes became public. Derek Morrison, meanwhile, was learning that federal prison doesn't care how much money your daddy has. His bail was denied after prosecutors argued he was a flight risk, and he was sitting in a cell awaiting trial on charges that could put him away for 20 years. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sarah had betrayed our marriage for a man who was now facing decades in prison, while I, the poor blue-collar boy she'd mocked, was free, financially secure, and had become something of a local hero for helping bring down a major corruption scheme. 3 weeks after Sarah moved out, she showed up at my house unannounced. I almost didn't recognize her. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by jeans and a plain t-shirt. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore no makeup. She looked younger somehow, but also broken. "Can we talk?" she asked when I opened the door. "I don't think that's a good idea. Your lawyer probably told you not to contact me." "Please, Eli, just 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I let her in. We sat in the living room where we'd once watched movies together, planned our future, talked about having kids someday. "I testified yesterday," she said without preamble. I know, Mike told me. They're going to prison, Derek and his father. 25 years, maybe more." I didn't respond. There wasn't anything to say. I keep thinking about what you said, about Derek never loving me. You were right. When they arrested him, he tried to blame everything on me. Said I seduced him, that I was the mastermind behind the whole scheme. But you weren't. No, I was just stupid. Flattered by the attention, excited by the money, thrilled to feel important. She looked around the room, taking in the family photos I hadn't yet taken down. I threw away everything real for something that was never real at all. "Why are you here, Sarah?" "To apologize. And to tell you that I understand now what I lost. You were the best man I've ever known, and I destroyed us for nothing." I studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation, but saw only genuine regret. "I appreciate the apology," I said finally, "but it doesn't change anything." "I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness or a second chance. I just needed you to know that I understand now. Derek used me, but I used you too. I took your love for granted and treated our marriage like it was disposable." "We asked me." She stood to leave, then paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I hope you find someone who deserves you. Someone who values what we had." After she left, I sat in my empty house and realized something had shifted. The anger I'd been carrying for weeks was finally gone, replaced by something that felt like peace. 6 months later, I was a different man living a different life. Lane. The divorce was finalized quickly and quietly. Sarah had no grounds to contest anything, and she was too focused on avoiding prison time to fight over assets. I kept the house, the savings, and my dignity. My construction business was thriving. Word had spread about my role in exposing the Morrison Group's corruption, and suddenly everyone wanted to hire the contractor who'd helped bring down the biggest fraud scheme in county history. I had more work than I could handle and was thinking about hiring additional crews. I'd also started dating again, something I never thought I'd be ready for so soon. Her name was Lisa, and she was a teacher at the local elementary school. She was nothing like Sarah. No social media presence, no designer clothes, no corporate ambitions. She was kind, genuine, and found my work with my hands attractive rather than embarrassing. We'd met at Mike's barbecue, and she'd listened to the whole story of my marriage and divorce without judgment. When I finished, she'd simply said, Sarah was an idiot, and asked if I wanted another beer. I was falling in love with her, slowly and carefully this time. Sarah, meanwhile, had disappeared from Millbrook entirely. She'd received 5 years probation and a massive fine, but avoided prison time in exchange for her testimony. Last I heard, she was living with her sister in California, working as a waitress and trying to rebuild her life from scratch. Derek Morrison was serving 15 years in federal prison. His father got 20. The Morrison Group was bankrupt, and dozens of other companies were under investigation for their role in the bid rigging scheme. On a warm Saturday morning in September, almost exactly 1 year after Sarah's affair began, I was working in my yard when a car pulled up to my house. I didn't recognize the vehicle, but I recognized the woman who got out. It was Jessica, Sarah's former best friend and maid of honor at our wedding. "Eli," she said, walking up my driveway. "I hope you don't mind me stopping by." "Not at all. How are you doing?" "Good. Really good, actually. I wanted to thank you. Thank me for opening my eyes about Sarah. I've been thinking a lot about our friendship over the years, and I realized she was never really a friend at all. She was competitive, manipulative, always trying to make herself look better by putting others down. I remembered Jessica as a sweet woman who'd always seemed to be trying to keep up with Sarah's lifestyle and demands. She had a way of making people feel like they needed her approval," I said. "Exactly, and I wasted years trying to be good enough for her friendship. When everything came out about Derek and the fraud, I realized I was better off without her in my life." We talked for a few more minutes about mutual acquaintances and how the scandal had affected Sarah's social circle. Most of her friends had distanced themselves, not just because of the crimes, but because they'd realized how toxic she'd been all along. After Jessica left, I went back to my yard work, thinking about how truth has a way of revealing everything. Sarah's betrayal hadn't just exposed her affair, it had revealed her character to everyone who knew her. That evening, Lisa came over for dinner. We cooked together in my kitchen, talking about our days, making plans for the weekend. It was comfortable and easy in a way my marriage to Sarah never had been. "You seem happy," Lisa said as we cleaned up the dishes. "I am happy. For the first time in years, I'm genuinely happy. Even after everything you went through." I thought about that for a moment. "Especially after everything I went through, I learned I'm stronger than I thought. I learned what I actually want in a relationship. And I learned that sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you turns out to be the best thing." Lisa smiled and kissed me softly. Sarah really was an idiot. 2 years after the night that changed everything, I was standing in my backyard, preparing for a barbecue. Mike was coming over with his wife. Lisa was bringing her famous potato salad, and a few other friends would be joining us. It was a beautiful Saturday afternoon, the kind of day that makes you grateful to be alive. My phone rang, and I was surprised to see Sarah's name on the caller ID. I hadn't heard from her since the day she'd apologized in my living room. "Hello, Sarah." "Hi, Eli. I hope I'm not bothering you." "Not at all. How are you?" "I'm better, different. I'm calling because I wanted you to know that I'm getting married." I felt a brief moment of surprise, then genuine happiness for her. "Congratulations. That's wonderful. His name is Tom. He's a mechanic. He knows everything about my past, about what I did to you and to us. He doesn't care about designer clothes or expensive restaurants. He's a lot like you, actually. That sounds perfect for you." "Ely, I need you to know something. I've spent the last 2 years in therapy, trying to understand why I destroyed the best thing in my life. I know now that I was never happy with myself, so I kept looking for external validation. Derek made me feel special, but it was all fake. I'm glad you figured that out. I also need you to know that I never deserved you. You loved me completely, and I threw it away because I thought I deserved something better. But there is nothing better than being loved by a good man." I could hear her crying softly on the other end of the line. "I hope you're happy, Ely. I hope you found someone who appreciates what an incredible husband you are." "I did," I said, watching Lisa through the kitchen window as she arranged flowers in a vase. "Her name is Lisa, and she's amazing." "Good, that's good. You deserve amazing." After we hung up, I stood in my backyard thinking about the journey that had brought me to this moment. Sarah's betrayal had nearly destroyed me, but it had also freed me from a marriage that was built on lies and pretense. Lisa came outside, carrying the flower arrangement. "Who was that?" she asked, not jealous but simply curious. "Sarah. She's getting married. How do you feel about that?" "Happy for her, and grateful." "Grateful?" I pulled Lisa into my arms, looking into her honest, loving eyes. "Grateful that she cheated. Grateful that she lied. Grateful that she chose Derek over me." Lisa looked puzzled. If she hadn't betrayed me, I never would have left her. I would have stayed in that marriage forever, never knowing what real love felt like. Her worst decision was the best thing that ever happened to me. Lisa smiled and kissed me. "Well, when you put it that way." "I do put it that way. Sarah gave me the greatest gift she could have given me. She set me free to find you." As our friends began arriving for the barbecue, I reflected on how completely my life had changed. 2 years ago, I'd been married to a woman who saw me as beneath her, who mocked my profession and my background while stealing money and cheating with a criminal. Now I was engaged to a woman who loved me exactly as I was, who was proud of my work and my integrity. I had a thriving business, genuine friendships, and a future that looked brighter than I'd ever imagined possible. Mike arrived with a bottle of champagne. "What's the special occasion?" Lisa asked. "No special occasion," Mike said with a grin. "Just celebrating the fact that sometimes the bad guys get what they deserve and the good guys win." Ooh! We raised our glasses in a toast. As I looked around at the people who truly cared about me, I realized that Sarah had been right about one thing. Everything had changed after that night at the Grandview Hotel. It had changed for the better. Derek Morrison was still in prison, his life and future destroyed by his own greed and arrogance. Sarah was starting over in California, hopefully having learned from her mistakes. And I was here, surrounded by people who loved me, living a life that was authentic and fulfilling. The stay had been extended, but not in the way Sarah had planned. My stay in happiness, in genuine love, in a life worth living. That stay had been extended indefinitely. As the sun set over my backyard full of friends and laughter, I couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. And I was living very well indeed.